Hey, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the Greenmount Cemetery in Baltimore, Maryland. So this cemetery was actually one of the first, I think they're called rural cemeteries, established in the United States. This was established in 1838 or 39. And the rural cemetery movement, for those who are unaware, was a movement that was started due to the health concerns and overcrowding that happened in urban cemeteries, mainly church cemeteries. And so cities and towns started building these cemeteries several miles outside of the towns themselves. And so I'll show you on a map probably now, but this cemetery was originally built, several 4 or 5 miles outside the town of Baltimore. 150, 60, 70, whatever years later, it is in the heart of the city still. So you can see the expansion. So it's funny to call this a rural cemetery when it's not rural at all anymore. But we are here today both to just check out how incredibly pretty this place is. I've never actually been here anytime other than the winter, so having leaves on the trees just gives it a totally different perspective. But also to check out a couple of significant graves that I'm guessing a lot of you probably don't know exist here. Let's go wander around a little bit, see what we can find, and check out some really interesting grave sites in the process. So here we go. From reading the history of this place a little bit, it's my understanding that this was established as part of the Romantic, or maybe I guess it's like the Romantic period in the U.S. history. So part of the purpose of this place was not only to build a rural cemetery, but to build a rural cemetery that incorporated into nature as part of that movement. But okay, where we're heading now, I actually just realized I've been showing it without even realizing it. It's probably the most famous, infamous grave here. And if I haven't given it away by the title of the video, which I probably have, I'll let you try to figure it out here before I tell you for sure. So take a guess who is buried here. So this is the Booth family plot. You've got Cora, Joseph, does that say Rosalie? Mary. But right over here in this corner, figured it out yet? It's a grave of John Wilkes Booth, the assassin of President Lincoln. And so what people like to do, and I brought my own, people like to lay pennies, and this is a completely unmarked grave. There's no name, there's no anything. You just have to know it's here. But people like to leave pennies as sort of a haha gotcha, Lincoln still wins sort of thing. But yeah, you would, there's nothing to indicate at all. And it makes sense. He assassinated the President of the United States. But it's just interesting that in the middle of this cemetery in the middle of Baltimore, it's the grave of the infamous John Wilkes Booth. There's downtown Baltimore, the Inner Harbor area right there. We are relatively close to the Old Town Mall, if you've seen that video. But you can see the city itself just peeking out right from behind the edges here. And actually, I need to remember where I parked my car, otherwise I am going to get very lost. But this is that Gothic revival style church. Oh, and actually, I just realized I'm very close to another famous grave here. Just have to get down over to it. I've actually never been to this one, so we will have to see if we can find it together. Alright, so it says it is somewhere right in here. There it is. Does that name come through? Johns Hopkins, born in 1795, died in 1873, was the founder of the Johns Hopkins University and the Johns Hopkins Hospital. So, embarrassingly enough, literally until last night, I was convinced, sure, based on nothing, that Johns Hopkins, that name, was a combination of two people's last name. There was someone named Johns, there was someone named Hopkins, and they came together and made the Johns Hopkins. Turns out, Johns Hopkins is an individual person. His first name was Johns. So over there it is. There is a giant. Oh, is mausoleum the right word? I feel like it might be it, or maybe. I don't know. But I think whatever that is, whatever that term is, it's a giant one of those up at the other end of the cemetery here. And there's one last grave I want to show you guys that I think is just more cool and random than really significant. I will note that there are two co-conspirators along with Booth and the Lincoln assassination that are also buried here. They were names that I didn't recognize, and I'm not going to bother trying to search out their graves. But yeah, other than to note that 3 people involved with the Lincoln assassination are buried in this arguably random cemetery in Baltimore. What a very cool building. This is so massive. Please see office for key. You can actually enter there. Alright, so for those of you who are familiar with this place, you probably know where I'm heading given my proximity and all that, but I'm curious how random the rest of you are going to think that this is. Oh, there it is. You see it yet? Anyone know what this is? Or whose this is? Elijah Bond, the patentee of the Ouija board. How incredibly random is that? So you can see here, again, we're right on the edge of Baltimore, the city itself. You can see actually a bunch of abandoned row homes here that are all boarded up. Actually, I think the majority of these are like that. But we are right on the edge of the city. And so it's just interesting to see an example of what was once considered to be miles outside of the city, now just being incorporated right into the middle of it. So let's go take a look, just kind of wander around a little bit more. Oh, yeah, I mean, yeah, that whole stretch there. The majority of those buildings look boarded up. The windows blown out. The one on the end looks like it had a fire in it. But yeah, let's go wander around just a little bit more, kind of take in the ambiance a little bit while I try to figure out where I parked. Then we'll probably call it. I know that there are other famous people that are buried here. I'm sure for those of you familiar or that go and look up the list after the fact, I'm sure I missed people that some people would want to see or want me to call out. It's just the nature of how this goes. I'm not going to get everything. So let me know below if I miss someone that you would think would be critical for me to call out. I'll be curious, maybe I'll have to come back even just in my own time and check it out. If not, make a little follow-up video to this. And right up here, the front gates. I mean, look at this, right there. I mean, you are right, there is no space between this place and the city. The city, as it expanded, literally built up all around it. Right, it's like those it's like when you see those places about developers coming in and wanting to buy up people's property to develop them, and you got that one person that doesn't do it. So the city just, or the developers just build up all around them and sort of isolate that person, and it makes for a really awkward scene. I feel like it's kind of a similar thing here. Like, they don't give it any space at all. Like, where the edge of the property of the cemetery is right where the city picked up, right across the street. Yeah, very cool, right? This is how you get in and out of the cemetery. You have to go through that tiny little gate right there. So I'm not sure what the purpose of this chapel would have been. I don't know if earlier on they held memorial services here or what, but this is another example of that, from my understanding, that Gothic revival style architecture that we've seen throughout the place, similar to the front gate. If you're ever in the area in the winter time, I definitely recommend coming and checking it out, because the vibe of the place in the winter is completely different in a really, really cool way. All right, so I parked somewhere over here. I mean, I know there's only so many places it can be. Ah, okay. Found my car. So I think with that, we're going to call that it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed this little walkthrough of the Greenmount Cemetery in Baltimore and checking out some of the interesting gravestones and just the general vibe of the place. If you did, you know the drill. Like button, subscribe button, notifications, leave a comment. Any interaction helps grows the channel. Helps grow the channel. There we go. And yeah, till next time, I will talk to you soon. All right, bye. I don't know if you guys can see this, but I mentioned at the beginning of my video that we're close to Old Town Mall. And there it is right there. We are, I think I'm not even 5 minutes, maybe 2 minutes out of the cemetery. So that gives you an idea of where we are.